Help support the companies that support our community. I started out with a piece of maple for this project, and I just put it in between centers. I just rough cut it on the bandsaw and put it in between centers and used a roughing gouge to true it up. And then I switched over to a spindle gouge to give it the basic shape. I'm loving this new jig, the new sharpening jig. I'll put a link down below in the description where you can check it out, but it is so quick and easy. So I just use the spindle gouge to give it the sphere shape, and then put a tenon down on one end of it. After I got the tenon shaped, I went ahead and put the chuck on. There was a little nub on the end that was sticking out a little bit too far and hitting the bottom, so I knocked that off with a chisel and then put it in the chuck so I could go ahead and start hollowing this thing out. I used a Forstner bit to just create a depth hole and clean out the material in the center. It just works really fast after you get it trued up. It works nice. It sets your depth for you and gets rid of that material in the center. And then I took that same size Forstner bit and drilled a few holes in around it. This works really well when you're doing a piece like this because you can watch the cutter cut the inside, and it's easy to check your wall thickness as you're going along. Plus it looks really cool. To make it a little bit easier, I slid the headstock down to the end of the lathe so I could stand right at the end of the lathe and hollow it out. Just makes it a little more comfortable where you're not leaning over the bed of the lathe. And on this one, I started out with the #1 hollower to get out the majority of it, and then I switched to the new mini hollowers with the negative rake. And they're perfect for small ornaments and things like that because they have the negative rake cutter on it and they don't grab as much. So it's really nice. This one was a little bit too deep to get the whole thing with the mini hollowers, but they work fantastic on small stuff like this. If you're doing a hollow form resin or a Christmas ornament, they work great and they don't grab on you. I was just finishing up the very bottom of the sphere with the #1 hollower. I went back to that, and needless to say, I didn't have the camera on, and which would have been fantastic because I was leaning over it, had my face shield on, I was watching the cutter down there, and it caught one of those little holes, and here is what's left of it, bits and pieces. So don't say anything in the comments below. I want to see how many people skipped past this part and didn't realize that it's a brand new piece of wood. So I chucked up another piece of wood. I hollowed it out real quick. I drilled some holes. I did the same process on this one, drilled holes in it. They're a little bit smaller Forstner bed, but got them all cleaned up, got it hollowed out, and I just went ahead and used pencil to outline what I wanted to cut off. I've done a couple of these where I've done one from each side or a smaller void in it, but on this one I'm cutting the majority of it away. And this is the first time I've done this. The air saw I use has a steel blade on it. It works really well and it doesn't catch. It's almost like you can draw with it, but because there isn't much solid material on it left, it did vibrate. So I was holding on to the top of it while I was cutting because it started bouncing a little bit, but it worked really well. When you're just doing, like two sides, this air saw is like perfect. You can literally draw with it. It's super cool. Then I just went ahead and took the little rotary tool and did like a back cut on all the little pieces and then sanded it up. And for the dye, I used the Transfast Black. So this project, I was looking up Christmas ornaments and I found a ceramic one that's very similar to this, and it was just super cool, and it was black and it had stars and everything on it, so I thought that would be neat. But it's I just love the way the black dye looks on it. It looks like felt, and we were gonna put a gloss on it, but we were online talking to Dale, and he suggested we just leave it the felt look because it looks so cool. So our original plan was, the one I had seen had a little like scene in it, and we were thinking about it, and I wanted to pour resin in it to do like little ice skaters for winter, and we couldn't find ice skaters. I found some online, but they were kind of cheesy, so we go to the hobby store and we found some little skiers. It was the only Christmas thing we could find, but we couldn't figure out what to do, and I was gonna like turn a little mountain inside of it, but then Robin found this, and this is perfect. So I did a little test on it, and the paint sticks to it. I even put a little bit of CA glue on it to get it to see if that was going to stick to it. So I just traced out a circle around it, and it's just rubber. It's actually mold material for making rocks for like train sets, but it worked great for this. I just cut out, measured the bottom of inside the sphere, and this is going to go inside of there. So I cut it out. I sprayed it with just regular white paint and sprinkled the easy inlay over it to give it that snow look. I think it came out great. It has a little bit of a shimmer to it. And this right here is just for the camera because Robin made a little tree there, and it came out perfect. It looked like a little pine tree. I tried to cut one up, and it looked like a shrub. So she ended up fixing mine and made the other one. I couldn't get it to look like a pine tree. But then again with those, just sprayed a little bit of white paint over it to make it look like they had a little bit of snow on them. So I parted the rest of the sphere off, and then just put a sanding pad on the lathe and sanded the bottom up. I just went ahead and used a pole saw because I didn't want this one to explode again on me. So I just didn't turn the tenon down very big. I left it pretty thick and just cut it off. I wasn't going to put a light in it, but we got to thinking about it and thought it would look really cool with a little tea light in it. Again, I couldn't find really small tea lights. I found some on Amazon, but they weren't going to be here in time, so I ran to the store and got some of these little candles. And this is the only part that I don't think goes well together. I think it's just too tall for the size of the ornament. It just sticks up too much, but I wanted to make it anyway so you kind of see how it's lit up. So I just recessed a small piece, and there's a little tenon on this that will go inside the top piece there, and then the tea light will slide down inside of that. The tenon was a little big, so I made a little jam chuck, put it back on the lathe, and brought the size down, and then took a skew and just undercut a little bit because the top of it's curved, so it'd seat down on there nicely. I need a small cap to cover up the tea light, so I'm just making a lid for that, and it just needs to barely go on there because the ornament isn't going to be hung, and you'll see at the end of it, it just looks a little too bulky for the top of it, but made a little lid and then a ring that goes on that too. So just cupping it out a little bit and using the #1 hollower again. So basically just making a lid with a ball on it and then after I get it off the lathe, I'll cut the sides off to make it look like a ring. Because the rubber doesn't come up the sides, I went ahead and painted around the bottom lip, and I went down maybe an inch or so all the way around on the bottom so that it looked like snow coming up, and a couple of spots I went up over the edge. So I used mother of pearl and just regular white. Robin said if you just use the mother of pearl, it has like a pink hue to it, so we put in a little bit of white, but wanted a little bit of shimmer, but not too much. So I just went ahead and went around that, and that way when you put the rubber insert in there, it will all kind of blend together. I just drilled a small hole in it for the trees. The little bases that they come with pop right off, so you can stick them in different things. But they worked out great for that. And then the little skiers, I used a thin CA glue for that. I just put a little bit on the bottom of the skis and tried to hold on to it with the tweezers and stick them on. The one I saw had stars on the top of it, and it was just a really cool look, and we were going to paint them on. We were just going to do little dots, but then Robin thought if we used the mother of pearl, they'd be more natural looking. So I sprayed clear on it, but I only put on just enough to get them to stick. I didn't want it to ruin that velvet look, so I just sprayed on a thin coat and then sprinkled on mother of pearl. I did it on the inside first, and then went ahead and sprayed the outside too. I put the cap and everything back on, and then sprayed it all down, and then sprinkled the mother of pearl around it. I just kind of tried to make it even and sprinkle it in there. I let the clear dry for about a half an hour, and then I put in the little scene, and I just kind of fit it in there, got it as close as I could, and then I used thick CA glue. So I went around and did it in about 4 spots, and I just glued the rubber to the wood in those spots because the rubber has a shape to it, and in a couple little spots it kind of sticks up a little bit, so I wanted that down in there, and that worked great. I did spray a little bit of activator on it. I got it in there and then hit it with the activator, and the CA glue bonds right to the rubber, and that's why I did that test too. I wasn't quite sure if it would, but it actually worked great. But I really like the way it came out. It was a fun one. I will put a picture of the one I saw, the ceramic one, but it was a fun one. I really wanted to do the resin with the ice skaters, but I don't know, it was Christmas time. I'm thinking somebody would have ice skaters, but really happy with how it came out, except for, I don't know, this is just a little too big for me. I don't think it matches, but it really looks cool. All lit up. I don't know. I didn't glue that all together because I didn't think it was going to be hung, because you have to have this come off to be able to turn the light on and off and change it. So I wasn't quite sure about that. I didn't think it would just be set on something, but a fun project. That die is amazing. It really does. It looks cool like velvet. Again, the mini hollowers that I was using. So if you're doing a lot of Christmas ornaments or stuff like that, or resin, doing any sort of hollow form like that, they work fantastic, and they have those negative ray cutters on it. I'll put a link down below in the description for those. And I went ahead and found on Amazon where you can buy the trees and the mold and all the little skiers and everything too, so if you want to check that out. But it was a fun one. All right, I hope everybody has a great holiday. We are going to be on the road. We're taking off and we're going to be in Oklahoma City on the 16th at the Woodcraft, and then we're going down to Dallas. So we'll be down in Dallas doing classes and a demo down there. I'll have links to all of that in the description too. I'll put a link to the Woodcraft there, and then where we're going to be in Dallas. So we're going to be on the road for 3 weeks in the mobile shop. So if you're in the area, please stop by and say hi. All right, till next time, take care.